Okay, folks, welcome to the review about The Hobbit, the third movie, the Battle of Five Armies. Two things: there will be spoilers, and the second thing is I'm going to do the review not in Minecraft, but in Dwarf Fortress, because I have a king in this Dwarf Fortress. This is the one of the older versions, from 2012, before you could retire, and I don't want to give up the city. So what I'm going to do is give you the review while watching this. I am going to do editing of the video because... No, excuse me. I'm going to do editing of the audio because I did have illness over Christmas, and I still now cough for cough's sake. You know, I just... So the audio is probably going to be cut up a little bit because of that, and also because every once in a while I notice I do have to think a little bit to talk before, if I don't have a script. So when I do reviews, it's usually quite simple. The good, the bad, the ugly, What I thought good, because every movie has something good. Every movie has something bad. But then it really comes down to the ugly. How much ugly the movie has. Let's face it, that's where the nitpicking comes in. And if a movie has a good story, nitpicking doesn't matter. If it has a bad story, if it's done badly, oi. Good. Bilbo Baggins. I liked when he was on the screen. He was a good character. He brought in quiet moments, cut up the film, helped pace it. This movie is the third of a series of not really good movies. This is in fact the worst of the three. The movie is based on the book The Hobbit. It's a children's story by Tolkien. And that's all it's supposed to be. It's not the prequel to The Lord of the Rings. It never was meant to be the prequel to Lord of the Rings. And the bad is that Oakenshield's the focus. Gandalf is the focus. The Ring's the focus. The Dark Lord becomes the focus. That's not what it's about. It's supposed to be about The Hobbit, and that's it. It's a children's story about getting out of your box, getting out, looking at the world. It's not about the ring. It's not about ultimate evil. It's not about one person defeating evil. This is not the Matrix. I don't believe in that anyway. One person cannot save the whales. It takes a society. But that's another rave someplace else. The ugly. The whole film. Every single part of the film, except for the small, quiet parts with Bilbo Baggins, is nothing but a non-stop action thriller. Luckily, it's shorter than the other films. But after a certain point, you just got sick of it. Legolas looking like Mario. The elk knocking out all those orcs. It was just becoming stupid. Which is not a good word in my family. That's probably the worst word you could use in my family. Stupid. I mean, this was really Peter Jackson becoming George Lucas. This is the prequel to Star Wars. The Hobbit's not supposed to be a prequel. At best, maybe 2 movies. At this point, the cartoon version of The Hobbit, the animated version of The Hobbit, to me is still superior to these 3 movies. The first movie wasn't that bad. I kind of enjoyed it. The second movie started to go... The first movie was going downhill to begin with. The second movie went down even farther. The third movie isn't even self-contained. And what I mean is, if you watched any of the Lord of the Rings movies, you could probably watch it without the other movies and enjoy it and want to know about the other movies. You could say the same for the episode 4, 5, and 6 of the Star Wars. I mean, if you saw Empire Strikes Back, that was fabulous. And if you've never seen Star Wars, heck, you'd want to go see Star Wars. If you saw this, Battles of the Five Armies, by itself, you might not even care about the rest of the movie. There might be a curiosity, like, what the heck's a Hobbit? But that's it. And that's the ugly part of this, is that this movie failed on all levels. It failed at a story. Even I thought some of the special effects were corny and didn't look realistic. I thought maybe the characters were just out and out done wrong. I mean, Oakenshield, King of the Dwarves, in the book, he's greedy. But he didn't turn... There's no hint in the book that he turned his back on his fellow kin when they showed up. The book, the battle in the books barely got any details. But you don't get the sense that he's burying himself into the mountain. He hates the orcs. He'd be out there with his kin from the Iron Hills to fight them. And they have this whole elaborate thing in the movie where he's deciding, well, I'm going to dig myself in deeper. I could avoid this whole thing. It's like, no, he wasn't a coward. Where in the book was he ever a coward? He was greedy, but they've added a yellow streak now. Now, in the movie, he's become Daffy Duck, a greedy, sniveling coward. Where was that in the book? I don't remember any of that even hinted in the book. And then there's the character from the second movie who kind of shows up in the third only, like, accidentally. The Borin, I think I pronounced it right, the gentleman who's a werebear. Which, by the way, there was enough of him in the second movie. Did I say book? Sorry. In the second movie. I didn't picture him being that grumpy. I didn't picture him, being that pessimistic. I pictured him being more cheerful. And yes, there was enough of him in the third movie, even though there's enough of everybody else in the third movie. I mean, and there's so many things like the worms from Dune. That was in the book. How did this get in there? I mean, how did the orcs come from behind the armies? I thought they're coming from the north, yet the dwarves had to move to the south to block them. What's going on? How are there so many orcs? And where are the wolves? And the wogs? And when I was a kid, that really confused me, because I'm like, that's 6 armies. When I get technical, the dwarves actually might be 2 armies, because one's from one section of the Middle-earth and one's from another, and the Hobbit might be his own army. Gandalf's not a human being, so I suppose you get up to, 7 or 8, or I don't know. But it just, having a movie that's really nothing more than one chapter in the book, and not really a chapter. I think they don't really describe, Tolkien really doesn't describe the battles that much. My guy likes going out hunting, doesn't he? Yes. So, the third movie for me was just a flop. There's the debate. I always told myself when I was doing these reviews, fantasy and sci-fi, that anything that got a 6 or lower than a 6 would not be put on YouTube. I mean, if I did a movie review and I realized that it deserved only a 5, that it wasn't going to go up. And the problem I have here is that I don't think this movie deserves any more than 2 out of 5. And when you think about a 10 rating, that means only, you're doubling it. That's only 4. So I seriously am not sure if I'm going to put this video up or not. It's probably going to be heavily edited. I don't think I raved too much, but I mean, he's going off into the woods. He likes to hunt. Pink doesn't seem to be a king's color, does it? But I just have serious issues with the third film. I think Peter lost his way. Mr. Jackson, I don't know if you'd like people calling him Peter, but I mean, I know he's a fan of The Hobbit. Obviously not a fan of The Hobbit, the book, because if he was, he wouldn't have overshadowed Bilbo Baggins with The Ring and The Dark Lord and Christopher Lee and Hugo Weaving, which I love them. They're great actors, but they shouldn't have been in the third movie. Christopher Lee does is great, but he shouldn't have been anywhere in this movie. This, I like McCoy, but outside of maybe his appearance in the first movie for a little bit, his character isn't even discussed in The Hobbit. I think his character is talked about in The Lord of the Rings. The reason I'm so upset is probably because I'm a sci-fi fan and a Tolkien and Robert E. Howard fan. I'm not into general fantasy. Fantasy really doesn't interest me very much. But there's certain authors I like. So why sci-fi films could get away with certain things, like Alien vs. Predator could get away with a lot of stuff, I don't get that upset. When you do Tolkien or Conan the Barbarian or Lord of the Rings, that's where I'm like, those are the fantasies I really, really do like. And when you get those wrong, that's it. it's just like, okay, that's you've screwed it up royally. And I loved Lord of the Rings, the 3 movies. Is I think he really did almost 100% perfect transfer from the book to the movies, with the understanding that you can't do a real 100% really scene for scene, because that's really bringing nothing to the film. And I think he did a wonderful job, 100%. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm upset with this. But also, to be honest, the more you got into it, the first movie, okay, things are starting to fall apart. Second one, why is this pale orc still in here? Why they got a dwarf and an elf falling in love? Why is there a redheaded elf? What the hell's going on? And then the third one, and it's just one big battle scene. A lot of it, if it was a good story, you wouldn't be able to pick at it. But it just was badly done. It's not even a story. It's not even self-contained. Return of the Jedi is self-contained. If you show that to a kid, he's going to want to watch the other movies, not just because he's curious, but because they're good. It was a good movie. He wants to see the others. He'd probably be disappointed by episode 1, 2, or 3, and probably try to kill you. But they all have there's all critics everywhere. But in the end, I have to give it 2 out of 5 or 4 out of 10. Like I said, I almost don't want to put this on YouTube, but I probably will after a lot of editing. Oh, he's moving again. What was he doing? Peeing? So, sorry if I ranted, sorry if I raved. Usually I do a little better on the reviews. I try to be a little more logical, a little more, hey, if you like this kind of movie, I didn't, but you might, stuff like that. I can't really picture anybody liking it, even people who like special effects and action, because it just keeps on going and going and going. And one of the things is, I like the setting, and I like dwarves, and I like hobbits and all that. So the first movie I was kind of stoked, even though I thought they could have done it better pacing and structure. And the second one I was kind of, it's getting a little weird. Would the orcs really follow them all the way to Lake Town? But I love the dragon. And the first 15 minutes of this film are wonderful. After that, it sucks. Literally is a stupid, horrible movie. And it's a little emotion there. I'm really upset about how it came out. And I tried to do this review later because I watched it around Christmas and New Year's, between Christmas and New Year's. So I tried to wait to let things fall, a whole month. I think it's made it worse. So, if you're not too much into Tolkien, you're not too much into fantasy, it might actually be better off. You might get a better rating out of it. You might think, well, it's more of a 4 out of 5. You might actually not be so invested. But few people are going to be watching this film who are not invested. So, it's going to be a problem. And now a cat's giving birth to kittens. Go slaughter some kittens. So I'll see you guys later. All right, bye bye.